Hello class, and welcome to lesson 2-11. As always, our first step that we're going to do is review our learning targets for today. So the learning target, I can solve math number models when given a rule. And here is the rule for this first problem, times 2. So we'll get into that in a little bit. And our second learning target is I can find the rule in a series of numbers. So we're going to actually look at that for problem 4. But for right now, I want you to be looking and following along, answering these same questions with us. This is the separate sheet of paper that I gave you at the beginning of the lesson. So follow along with me as we answer. So let's take a look at our first problem. The rule is times 2. So that means we're going to take whatever's in this box and we're going to multiply it by 2. And if we do that, 1 times 2 does equal 2, so that's correct. If we multiply by 2 again, 2 times 2 is 4. Do it even one more time. 4 times 2 is 8. So we just got to keep this pattern going to find out the missing numbers for these two boxes. So I'm thinking 8. I'm going to write it up here, times 2. And I'm going to count by, actually I'm going to do 8 plus 8 because I know 8 plus 8 is 2 groups. And 8 plus 8 is 16. So I go ahead and I record my number in this box. Now to keep this going, there's still one more missing number. And we're going to keep with that same rule over here of multiply by 2. So we're going to go times 2. And I'm thinking 16 plus 16. So I'm going to write down here just some number models. 16 plus 16. I know I can do 10 plus 10. Take the 10 from each number. And that equals 20. And then I can do the 6's. 6 plus 6 equals 12. 20 plus 12 equals 32. So my next number in this pattern would be 32. And it fits with each one. 1 times 2. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. So take a moment to make sure you are all caught up with my number model, and we'll move on to the next one. As we move on to this next problem, problem number 2, please again follow along with us. We notice here we have a different rule this time. Our rule is subtract 2 or minus 2. So we're going to start here right at 17, and we're going to subtract 2. And you see how I'm putting the rule up above these arrows? I want you to be doing the same thing. So I've got 17 minus 2. 17 minus 2 is 15. Let's see if that fits with our next one. Is 15 minus 2 equal 13? It does, so we can keep going. 13 minus 2 equals 11. 11 minus 2 equals 9. And see if this fits with our last one. Does 9 minus 2 equal 7? It does. So that fits with our rule being minus 2. And we work in the order of these arrows. So make sure your notebook is caught up with mine. We're going to move on to the next problem. This next problem is a little bit trickier. If you look, where our rule is divide by 2. So if we're looking, we got to try to find that number. This number right now is missing. We're not sure what that number is. So here's what I'm thinking as I'm trying to solve this. If I know the number here has to be divided by 2 to get to 40, so it has to be cut in half. So I know that I have to double this number. I have to find out what number goes in this spot here that when divided by 2 will equal 40. So the opposite of dividing by 2 would be to multiply by 2. So I'm thinking in reverse order. So I'm thinking 40 times 2 equals what? And that what's going to go in this box here that I've circled. So I'm thinking 40 plus 40 is 80. So because we had to work backwards, we did the opposite of division. We multiplied. So now we've got 80. We know 80 divided by 2 is 40. Now we have to do the same thing to 40. We have to do 40 divided by 2. We're thinking, what's half of 40? Or if we split 40 into two groups, each group would have 20. I know that because 20 plus 20 equals 40. So we have to keep going on. We're going to take 20 divided by 2. We're going to cut it in half again. And I know that 10 plus 10 equals 20. So I know half of that is going to be 10. Lastly, we still have to double check to make sure this fits with our rule. So 10 divided by 2 equals 5. And I know that because 5 times 2 equals 10. So we've got our arrows filled out. The one thing I do want to point out and just highlight again is this part right here. We had to do the opposite. Remember, we had to go 40 times 2 because we were working backwards. So keep that in mind when you're solving your problems on your own. So take a moment to get your notes caught up with mine, and we'll move on to the next problem. All right, class, let's take a look at the learning target again, because we're now going to be looking at this second learning target. I can find the rule in a series of numbers. And when I say find the rule, it's because in this problem, we don't know what the rule is. So we have got to look at our frames and arrows and see if we can find a pattern. So we got to take what we know. So I'm looking here at 5 to get to 10. Well, I know I could multiply. I could do 5 times 2 equals 10. So that might be it. So I'm going to write this up here just as a thought. I'm going to write lightly because I might have to change it. 5 times 2 equals 10. Let's see if that works with our pattern. So let's do 10 times 2 equals 20. Oh, and you know what? As I'm looking at that now, I can see that our rule cannot be times 2 because 20 times 2 doesn't equal 20 here. So I've got to do some backtracking. So I'm going to erase this work here because I know it cannot be 5 times 2. It's got to be something different. So let's think. What's another way to get from 5 to 10? We tried multiplication. Now we can add. Let's see. 5, I'm thinking 5 plus what equals 10? And I know that's plus 5, so let's try that. Plus 5. 5 plus 5 equals 10. Let's try that again, see if this works. 10 plus 5 equals 15. Ooh, we're getting closer. And 15 plus 5 equals 20. It does. Let's keep going. 20 plus 5 equals 25. 25 plus 5 equals 30. So we're almost done. We still have a few things to do. We still need to figure out what number belongs in here. And if we've been adding 5 to get these numbers as we go on, we're going to have to do the opposite of adding. We're going to have to subtract. So to find the number here, we're thinking 5 minus 5 equals what? And 5 minus 5 equals 0. So if we look, this pattern works because we're counting by 5. 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So we're almost done. There's just one last thing that we need to do, and we need to write the rule. And the rule is add 5. If we use that rule, we'll be able to find each one of these answers for the number model. Take a moment to make sure your notebook is up to speed with mine. All right, now's the point in the lesson where you're going to start working independently. If you look in your journal right here on page 57, you'll see that there's some similar types of problems that we solved. I want to point out that number 2, you're finding the rule, and in each of these other problems, they're giving you the rule. So when you're done, you're going to solve all the problems on page 57. You're going to submit the whole page in Seesaw, this whole page that's right over here to our right. After you get done, please then complete pages 58 and 59. Those do not need to be submitted in Seesaw. That's the result of our lesson. Remember, as a good digital learner that you are, if you are having trouble with this lesson, you'll go back and watch it again.